The crisp autumn air nipped at Ilara's cheeks, painting them a rosy hue that mirrored the vibrant leaves crunching under her hiking boots. Beside her, Liam's easy laughter echoed through the ancient woodland. Sunlight dappled through the canopy, casting dancing shadows on the winding trail. They had escaped the relentless hum of London for a long weekend in the Peak District, seeking solace in the embrace of nature. "This is exactly what we needed," Ilara sighed contentedly, pausing to admire a particularly striking patch of crimson foliage. Liam wrapped an arm around her shoulders, pulling her close. "Absolutely. No deadlines, no traffic, just us and the trees." He kissed the top of her head. "And maybe a friendly pub lunch later." They continued their trek, the rhythmic crunch of their boots a soothing counterpoint to the rustling leaves and the distant chirping of birds. The path, well-trodden and familiar from previous visits, meandered gently uphill, promising panoramic views from the summit. After a couple of hours, as they rounded a bend cloaked in the shade of ancient oaks, a scent unlike anything they had encountered before wafted through the air. It was intensely floral, almost overwhelmingly so, a rich and heady perfume that seemed to bloom from the very earth around them. It wasn't the delicate fragrance of wildflowers they were accustomed to. This was deeper, more exotic, with undertones of honey and something subtly otherworldly. Liam stopped abruptly, his nose twitching. "Did you smell that?" Ilara inhaled deeply, her eyes widening. "Yes. It's incredible." What could it be? The scent seemed to beckon them, growing stronger with each step they took further along the path. It was as if an invisible thread was pulling them forward, their curiosity piqued beyond resistance. They exchanged a look, a silent agreement passing between them. This was something they had to investigate. The marked trail began to fade, replaced by a less defined track leading off into a denser part of the woods. The air grew heavier, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the thick canopy above. Yet, the floral scent remained their unwavering guide, a potent beacon in the deepening gloom. They pushed through tangled undergrowth and climbed over moss-covered rocks, the intensity of the fragrance growing almost intoxicating. It felt as though they were walking into the heart of some secret, blooming garden hidden deep within the ancient woods. Then, nestled amongst a cluster of gnarled hawthorn bushes, they found it. A small, almost concealed opening in the hillside, partially obscured by trailing ivy. The floral scent emanated from within, stronger here than anywhere else. "A cave," Liam murmured, pushing aside a curtain of ivy to reveal a dark, narrow entrance. Ilara felt a flicker of unease. They had strayed far from the marked paths, and this place felt different. Yet, the allure of the mysterious fragrance was too strong to ignore. "Should we?" she began hesitantly. Liam's adventurous spirit had already taken hold. "Come on. Just a quick peek. What could be making that incredible smell?" He produced a small flashlight from his backpack and shone it into the darkness. The beam revealed a narrow passage leading downwards, the air within thick with the intoxicating floral aroma. With a shared glance of nervous excitement, they ducked under the low-hanging branches and entered the cave. The air inside was surprisingly still and warm, a stark contrast to the cool breeze outside. The floral scent was almost palpable here, clinging to the damp stone walls. They followed the passage, which gradually widened and descended into the earth. The beam of Liam's flashlight danced across the rough-hewn walls, revealing strange, almost geometric patterns etched into the stone. After a short descent, the passage opened into a small cavern. The source of the scent was immediately apparent. In the center of the cavern, bathed in an ethereal, golden light that seemed to emanate from nowhere, stood a door. It was unlike anything they had ever seen. Crafted from a gleaming, polished gold, it stood perfectly smooth and seamless, without hinges or a visible handle. Intricate carvings, depicting swirling floral patterns that mirrored the scent in the air, adorned its surface. The golden light pulsed gently, casting dancing reflections on the cavern walls. Elara gasped, her unease momentarily forgotten in the face of such an extraordinary sight. "What is this place?" Liam was equally mesmerized. He reached out a tentative hand towards the golden door, his fingers hovering just above its smooth surface. "I don't know," he breathed. "But I've never seen anything like it." The floral scent, though still strong, now carried a subtle, almost metallic undertone. The air felt charged, expectant. "Maybe we shouldn't," Elara said, a knot of apprehension tightening in her stomach. "This feels wrong." But Liam's curiosity had reached its peak. He couldn't resist the allure of the unknown. Just a quick look. What harm could it do? Ignoring Elara's hesitant plea, he pushed gently against the golden surface. To their astonishment, the door yielded silently, sliding inwards as if on well-oiled tracks, revealing not another chamber, but an expanse of swirling, violet-tinged darkness. The moment the door opened, the intoxicating floral scent vanished, replaced by a wave of the most abhorrent stench Elara had ever encountered. It was a thick, cloying odor of decay and sulfur, a truly putrid assault on their senses that made their stomachs churn. The golden light from the doorframe flickered and died, plunging the cavern into near darkness, illuminated only by the faint, sickly violet glow emanating from beyond the threshold. A chorus of guttural growls and screeching cries echoed from the swirling darkness, sending shivers down their spines. Liam stumbled back, his face pale. What is that?" Before either of them could react, grotesque figures began to emerge from the violet gloom. They were vaguely humanoid, but twisted and deformed, with sharp claws, leathery wings, and eyes that glowed with malevolent red light. The air crackled with an oppressive energy, and the putrid stench intensified, making it hard to breathe. Demons. The horrifying realization struck Elara with the force of a physical blow. They had stumbled into some nightmarish realm, a place of darkness and evil. Panic seized them. Liam grabbed Elara's hand, his grip tight. "We need to get out of here." They turned to flee back through the golden door, but it was gone. The seamless surface of the wall offered no trace of the opening they had just created. They were trapped. The demons advanced, their guttural snarls growing louder, their glowing red eyes fixed on the terrified intruders. One of the creatures lunged, its razor-sharp claws extended. Liam shoved Elara behind him, raising his hands defensively. "Stay back." But his plea was futile. The demons were upon them, a horde of grotesque figures driven by a palpable hunger. Their hiking trip had taken a catastrophic turn. The enchanting floral scent had lured them into a nightmare, and now they were facing a desperate fight for survival in a realm beyond human comprehension. The first demon struck, its claws tearing through Liam's jacket, drawing a searing line of pain across his arm. He cried out, stumbling backwards. Elara screamed, her mind reeling in terror. Adrenaline surged through her. She grabbed a heavy rock from the cavern floor and hurled it at the nearest demon, hitting it squarely in the chest. The creature shrieked, momentarily stunned, giving them a precious few seconds. "Run!" Elara yelled, pulling Liam towards the far side of the cavern, away from the advancing horde. They scrambled over jagged rocks, the putrid air burning their lungs. The cavern seemed to stretch endlessly, the violet glow casting long, distorted shadows that danced with the demonic figures. Liam, despite his injured arm, kept pace, his eyes darting around frantically, searching for any sign of escape. There has to be a way out. They reached the end of the cavern, only to find a narrow passage leading deeper into the darkness. It was their only option. They plunged into the passage, the sounds of the pursuing demons echoing behind them. The passage twisted and turned, descending further into the bowels of this terrifying realm. The air grew heavier, the oppressive energy more intense. Strange, phosphorescent fungi clung to the damp walls, casting an eerie green light that did little to dispel the gloom. They stumbled blindly through the darkness, their hands scraping against the rough stone walls. The putrid stench seemed to seep into their very pores, a constant reminder of the horrors that pursued them. "We need to find that door again," Elara gasped, her voice hoarse. "It has to be the way back." "But it's gone," Liam replied, his voice laced with despair. "How are we supposed to find it?" "We have to try," Elara insisted, her determination fueled by a primal need to survive. "There has to be a reason it was there." They pressed on, their hope dwindling with each step. The passage opened into a larger chamber, this one filled with a low, guttural chanting that vibrated through the very stone beneath their feet. In the center of the chamber, a group of even larger, more grotesque demons were gathered around a pulsating, violet crystal. The chanting seemed to emanate from the crystal, filling the air with a malevolent energy. The demons turned their glowing red eyes towards the intruders, their chanting abruptly ceasing. A collective snarl rippled through the chamber. Escape seemed impossible. They were trapped between the pursuing horde and this new, more formidable group of demons. But Elara refused to give up. She scanned the chamber frantically, her eyes searching for anything that could help them. Her gaze fell upon a series of strange symbols etched into the walls, glowing faintly in the eerie light. "Liam, look," she exclaimed, pointing towards the symbols. "Do you recognize any of these?" Liam squinted, his brow furrowed in concentration. "They look ancient. Almost like Celtic runes, but twisted, corrupted." As he spoke, one of the larger demons let out a deafening roar and charged towards them. "We don't have time," Elara cried, grabbing Liam's hand. "We need to move." They dodged the charging demon and scrambled along the edge of the chamber, trying to stay out of reach of the others. Elara's mind raced, trying to make sense of the strange symbols. Could they hold a clue? A way out? Suddenly, she remembered something she had read in an old book about folklore and mythology, a passage about interdimensional gateways and the symbols that were said to guard them. Some of the symbols on the wall seemed vaguely familiar, distorted echoes of those ancient markings. An idea, desperate but potentially their only hope, sparked in her mind. "Liam," she said urgently, "we need to find a sequence. A pattern in these symbols. Maybe there's some kind of key." The demons were closing in, their snarls and growls filling the chamber. They had to act fast. Together, they moved along the wall, examining the glowing symbols, trying to discern any order or pattern. It was a chaotic jumble of lines and curves, seemingly random. But Elara focused, her mind racing, trying to recall the fragmented images from the ancient text. She looked for recurring elements, for symbols that seemed to relate to each other in some way. Time seemed to stretch into an eternity as the demons advanced, their shadows looming over them. Just as despair threatened to engulf her, Elara noticed a sequence of 3 symbols that seemed slightly different, more pronounced than the others. They were arranged in a triangular pattern, and a faint pulse of energy seemed to emanate from them. "Liam, look," she exclaimed, pointing to the symbols. This feels right." Without hesitation, she reached out and touched the first symbol. A jolt of energy coursed through her arm. The symbol glowed brighter. She touched the second, and then the third. As her fingers connected with the final symbol, the air in the chamber shimmered. The chanting from the violet crystal faltered, and a low, resonant hum filled the air. The demons recoiled, their glowing red eyes wide with what looked like fear. A faint golden light began to emanate from the wall where the symbols were etched. The light intensified, and the seamless stone began to ripple and distort. A doorway, shimmering and golden, began to form. The golden door. It had reappeared. "Liam, now!" Elara cried, pulling him towards the emerging portal. The demons, momentarily stunned by the sudden appearance of the door, hesitated. But their hesitation was brief. With renewed fury, they surged towards the fleeing couple. Liam, his arm still bleeding, pushed Elara through the shimmering doorway. He followed close behind, just as the first of the demons reached them. A searing pain ripped through his leg as sharp claws grazed his flesh. They stumbled through the golden portal and collapsed onto the cold stone floor of the cavern where they had first encountered the door. The putrid stench of the demon realm was instantly replaced by the damp, earthy smell of the cave. The golden door shimmered and then vanished, leaving no trace of its existence. They lay there for a moment, gasping for breath, their bodies trembling with exhaustion and terror. The sounds of the demon realm were gone, replaced by the eerie silence of the cave. Slowly, they sat up, their eyes wide with disbelief. They had escaped. But the horrors they had witnessed, the terror they had felt, were etched into their minds. Liam examined his injuries. The gash on his arm was deep, and his leg was bleeding. Elara, though physically unharmed, felt a cold dread that settled deep in her bones. They had to get out of this cave, out of this cursed place. Using Elara's scarf as a makeshift bandage for Liam's arm, they slowly made their way back through the passage, the beam of their flashlight cutting through the darkness. The floral scent was completely gone, replaced by the musty odor of damp earth. The climb back up to the cave entrance felt arduous, their limbs heavy with exhaustion and fear. Finally, they emerged into the fading daylight, the familiar sight of the autumn woods a welcome relief, though now tinged with a sense of unease. They stumbled back towards the marked trail, their pace slow and unsteady. The beauty of the woods seemed to have lost its charm, overshadowed by the terrifying reality they had just experienced. They eventually reached the car, the familiar smell of the leather seats a small comfort. Liam started the engine, his hands still shaking slightly. As they drove away, leaving the ominous woods behind, neither of them spoke. The silence in the car was heavy with the unspoken trauma they had shared. Back in their London flat, the familiar comforts of home felt alien, almost surreal. The memory of the putrid stench, the sight of the grotesque demons, the chilling sound of their snarls, lingered in their minds, a persistent nightmare that refused to fade. Liam's physical wounds slowly healed, but the emotional scars ran deeper. They both suffered from nightmares, vivid and terrifying replays of their ordeal in the demon realm. The once comforting silence of their home was now often punctuated by Elara's sudden gasps in the night or Liam's restless tossing and turning. They tried to explain their experience, but the words felt inadequate, almost fantastical. How could they convey the sheer horror of what they had encountered? They decided to keep it to themselves, a terrifying secret that bound them together in a shared trauma. The hiking boots, once symbols of their shared adventures, now sat at the back of the cupboard, gathering dust. The Peak District, once a place of peaceful escape, was now associated with a terrifying brush with the unknown. Life slowly returned to a semblance of normalcy, but something had irrevocably changed. The veil between their world and something dark and ancient had been lifted, and they had glimpsed the terrifying reality that lay beyond. The memory of the golden door, the putrid scent, and the demonic eyes would forever haunt their dreams, a chilling reminder of the day their innocent hike led them to the very gates of hell. They clung to each other, finding solace in their shared experience, a silent understanding passing between them. They had faced unimaginable horror and survived, but they knew, with a chilling certainty, that the world was a far more mysterious and dangerous place than they had ever imagined. The floral scent, once a symbol of beauty and allure, would forever be associated with the gateway to a terrifying reality, a reminder of the thin veil that separated their world from the demon realm. And they knew, with a shared, unspoken fear, that the golden door might one day open again.